This is Into Beats 106.5 FM. Hello, this is Amy Botes here from PEPPED Productions again. It's so nice to be back. I hope you're all doing really well. Following on from the last few weeks, I'll be carrying on this week with my series on personal impact. So for those who missed it, last week we concentrated on dealing with our inner critic. And this week we're going to be following that up with how to deal with nerves and how we can stop getting in our own way. So a little bit more about me, just in case you missed me last week. I'm a professional RADA-trained actress and communication coach, and my coaching methods are all based on how an actor prepares for a role. I train people to use acting techniques to transform their reality and lead them to become a better version of themselves. And we use physical, vocal and mental exercises to literally take a person from Clark Kent to Superman. And this is the last in a series of 8 programs where I'll be sharing my top tips on personal impact, how we create it, how we can sustain it, and what steps you need to take to make sure you're creating the maximum personal impact. Many of us get nervous. In fact, scratch that. Everyone gets nervous at some point in their lives. Even people you would imagine are supremely confident get nervous at some point. It's natural, and it's actually the body's way of keeping you safe. We have a natural fight or flight instinct that measures threat levels. Now, one thing to point out here is that sometimes that perceived threat level is higher than it should be. And I'll give you an example. The most nervous I have ever been was when I was about to perform as Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream. I was performing this alongside a full orchestra who were playing Mendelssohn's score for A Midsummer Night's Dream. And we'd gone on tour to America, and so I had the added pressure of jet lag to contend with. But for the first 15 minutes, I was sitting in amongst the orchestra whilst they played the overture. And there were 3,000 people in the audience. And it was a huge concert hall, which was actually packed to the rafters. And my heart was beating 10 to the dozen, my palms were sweaty, and my throat was dry. And now you might say that was a natural reaction in that sort of circumstance. However, if we really break it down, was there any physical threat in that situation? No one was going to attack me. A bear wasn't going to suddenly appear on stage and maul me to death. And so really, it was a pretty irrational way to feel. The only real threat was emotional, in that if I had somehow mucked up, in inverted commas, I might have felt humiliated. But then even looking at that rationally, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, out of the 3,000 people in the audience, I personally only knew 2, and I knew they were rooting for me. Plus, in fact, the whole audience were rooting for me. They wanted me to do well because they wanted to see the play and they wanted to see the performance. One way to deal with nerves is not to think about what's the worst that could happen, but instead think, what is the best that could happen? I call this positive nervous state, forget the brain. It's not so much about cutting off your thought process, but it's just stopping that silly voice in your mind, that negative self-talk that can trip you up. Now, another few tips for getting over nerves when speaking in public are these. Remember to centre yourself. Take a strong but relaxed physical stance that allows you to breathe easily. And then, of course, remember to breathe. And keep repeating your first line over and over to yourself until it's time to speak. Because once you've got this out, it'll just naturally lead you through the rest of your speech. Also, remember that adrenaline can be incredibly useful. It gives you energy and vitality, and this is often what creates the X factor, so don't be afraid of that natural high. Use it. You can listen back to this segment on my website, which is www.peppedproductions.co.uk, and if you have any comments or you want to share something, please don't hesitate to follow me on Twitter at WeArePepped, or check us out on Facebook where we're listed as PEPPED Productions. This is coming from Into Beats 106.5 FM.